excited for this episode of DHANDHA series. This time we thought of focusing on textiles as a sector. I think we've been focusing on NBFCs, but yes, there are some sectors which are going through tough time right now. But I think this is the best time to understand about the company. And me and entire team of Omkara is very thankful to the management of Pearl Global, Mr. Pallab Banerjee and Mr. Sanjay Gandhi for taking out time and being our gurus today. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And of course, Varun, part of our research team, is also joining us. Before we start, sir, a disclaimer, very, very important, that we are investors in Pearl Global. We have been advising Pearl Global as a company to invest, but there is no economic relationship between Omkara, Varinder, Bansal, or the gentleman sitting here, or even as a company. This is purely as an exercise to understand the company in detail and, of course, about the industry as well. And I always say, sir, this that let us try to make these kind of series, धंधा series, as simple as possible, ताकि मेरी मम्मी भी समझ सके कि Pearl Global होता क्या है. So we will start it very, very basic, or please be free to interrupt anywhere as a chit chat kind of a session, ताकि अपने को सबको मजा आए, when we do this.
Sure.
तो सर सबसे पहले Pearl Global के बारे में now Pearl Global as a group, because a lot of people keep on asking me कि Pearl Global company है कि group है. You both are not the owners, if I can say, of the company, which is a listed entity. So if possible, tell us about the group first, then Pearl Global as a company, and then about the promoters, and then we'll come to you. So it's very important to understand the management first, and then we'll come to the dhanda, the business.
Perfect. Okay, I can start. So Pearl Global as a company started in 1987 by Dr. Deepak Seth. And so it started small, like just an order of 6,000 pieces. And that's the time, India was opening up in terms of apparel exports for some of these entrepreneurs who on their own were picking up some business and trying to execute it out of India. So way back in 80s. So that's when Pearl Global started. He, as an exception compared to the rest of the other players in the market, wanted to be more close to the customers. So he started opening up more offices or working very closely with the customers in UK and US and Canada, like that. So as a result, he had started already an international footprint in the 90s itself. By 2013-14, that's the time he split the business between two of his sons. The two sons, Palak Seth and Pulkit Seth. So Palak Seth got the most of the trading part of the business, international trading part of the business, and the company formed was PDS, which is also a listed entity and completely separate from Pearl Global. And then the second part was with Pulkit Seth, which is all the manufacturing part of the business. Mainly the customers were from US at that point of time. And that became Pearl Global Industries Ltd. So this split happened in 2013-14. As of now, I think there is nothing common between this. There is no cross-holding, nothing. Absolutely two separate companies, no interaction. Though both the companies at some time may be competing against each other for the customer's wallet share. The common factor would be only the parents, which is Deepak Seth, who is chairman of both the groups. And then the current management team that you are interacting with, me and Sanjay and my team at this point of time, most of us joined in 2019. 18-19 is the period. I think so that's when we started trying to make this organization much more, what I would say, as more of a professional with a clear mission, vision, statements, what we want to be, who we are. So those kind of things, proper management and proper professionalism, we started bringing in from 2018 onwards. I won't say that before that was not professional, but the main chairs on these chairs was where the promoters were sitting. So that's the kind of
distinction that happened. So help us with your background, sir, and both of you, if possible, and also what made you come to Pearl Global? Textile has never been a sexy sector,
So for me, it was always textiles. I am a NIFT graduate from 92 batch. And then I spent a huge amount of time of my career with Gap International Sourcing, the Gap Inc. part tha main. So I was there for almost 20 plus years, 21 years approximately. And my final was, I was the managing director and also the global sourcing head based out of India for a long period of time. Started the retail also here. So yes, my career has been mainly into Gap. American company. And in 2018, I was leaving from there, and that's the time like I was evaluating like what is the future of Indian manufacturers, and I found Pearl Global as ready to be one of the global manufacturing company. And that's the time Pearl was also asking me like to see and work with them. So that's the time like we had couple of conversation, and my choice of Pearl is because it was more ready for international or a global company, which I will talk about more during this conversation. So that's how I landed in 2019, took up this role more seriously, and started getting more people. Sanjay was one of the
Yeah,
initial found. So let
just
Sanjay
to
speak about him.
Yeah, thank you. So just to give you my background, so before joining Pearl, I had worked across geographies and across sector. Actually, I'm not a never worked in a textile sector before joining Pearl Global Industries. So I started my essentially career with Olam International in West African country. I mean, it was in Ivory Coast, and Burkina Faso and Cameroon, three main countries where I was responsible. And then I moved to Kalyani Group in Bharat Forge and went to China. And there is one joint venture by Bharat Forge in China with the place called Changchun. It was also, 2.5, 3 years in there before they started a new venture in renewable energy sector, which was Kinersil. Then I joined a private equity fund, True North, which were trying to sell some company to Toshiba at that point in time. So I post sale of that company, I continued with Toshiba. And this was my fourth, kind of a pillar. When I met in 2019, Dr. Seth, I remember, was very clearly mentioned to really bring a lot of thrust on the governance, capital allocation, the cash flow management. I think that was a clear focus area. And I met Pallab also during those time, and with Mr. Pulkit Seth. So the business side was already, the pillars were getting laid out, and that's where they thought, the best is to really get with this somebody who have a global experience. And for me also, Pearl was kind of on the cusp of unlocking the value for the next 5, 6 years. So we spent good initial year in building those pillars there. So that's just a brief about my background, how I landed in Pearl and where we are today. I think we'll discuss more about our journey as we progress further.
So you both joined like in the gap of how much time?
I started spending time with Pearl in 2018 as I was moving out of Gap, and I was just trying to understand what's the business and basically more like a consulting kind of project. What should be your next steps? And then 2019, the mandate was given to me to make it all happen. I can give you a little bit of background about this international trade or the sourcing part of this apparel. At Gap, like I was responsible for the global sourcing. So naturally, I had interacted with most of these garment manufacturing countries and the entrepreneurs across the globe very closely. So whether it was from South Korea or from China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, so all these region, and compared to that also the European countries like Spain and Portugal, some of the American companies. So I had a global footprint. So what happens is in this trade, the garments get manufactured across the globe. And if I talk about the four basically pillar zones, one would be the Southeast Asia, which is the countries like China, Philippines, Indonesia, Taiwan. So these are the countries like are very big for apparel, and it can have everything like right from the fiber to the complete fashion can be provided from this region. Then the second region would be the Mediterranean region. That means the countries north and south of Mediterranean seas, whether it is Spain, Portugal, Germany, Italy, then your Egypt, Romania, Bulgaria. So all these niche आपका जो है Tunisia, Morocco, lot of garments get manufactured out there. Countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, जहाँ पे cotton is a raw material that is abundantly available from Indian field and Pakistani fields. This has become a big hub. And the fourth hub is your Central America, which is your countries like Mexico, your Guatemala, your Peru, and little bit of that region, Nicaragua. So those are the countries also make garments. So out of these four regions, like Pearl Gap में मेरा जो main role था, how do you divide the business between these four regions? And then within the four region, between the countries, and then comes the players. So in terms of players, there are two kind of players. Either there could be a factory or a vendor who has a factory in one of the country, let's say in Bangladesh or in India or let's say in Sri Lanka. So a Sri Lankan company working only in Sri Lanka. Then the second category of vendors were there, basically like the Israelis, the Jews, who control this trade globally for a very long time and still controls it. Now most of them has become big retailers and all. Earlier they were manufacturers, they were sellers and all. Then there is these Taiwanese companies, South Koreans, and a few Chinese, which have become really big. So they are the ones like who have a global footprint. They manufacture across multiple countries, and they are all of them are in a multi-billion-dollar kind of scale that they operate with. So unfortunately, from India, we didn't have any of those. And if I look at Pearl at that point of time, Pearl was ready to be like that because already it had a manufacturing setup in countries like, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Vietnam has just started. So it gave me a good idea that, okay, this is the company that I can pick up, build up a strong team, which is very close from, both sides, manufacturing side also, and also experience from the retail side. If I can bring in together, then I can make into a global company. So that's the kind of discussion that we had, and that's how like Sanjay and some of my other CEOs across each of these other countries that we had brought in around that time. Or most of us joined in around 2019-20 period, and that's how this new journey had started.
Sir, I don't know whether this is right to say or wrong, okay? Okay, we have been tracking this sector for a long time, okay? That somehow the feeling comes that textile has been given a stepmother kind of a treatment in India. With kind of your experience in Gap and, sir, and, with Bharat Forge and China and everywhere, you could have gone to any other country, like, and which have done phenomenally well in terms of the size, what they've created as a textile industry. Even looking at the last 5 or 6 years, or whatever, 7, 8 years you have been in this company. I don't know whether what is your thought process on this, that whether मैं कभी कभी सोचता हूँ सर कि हमारी आंखों के सामने बांग्लादेश और वियतनाम बन गया and this is one of the oldest industry in India, I think, with the largest population working in this sector. Like I really fail to surprise why did India lose that edge in this kind of a sector.
So India, if you have to answer this question, I don't know if I'm perfectly the perfect person to answer it, but from my perspective, what I find is that India never became a very big manufacturing hub. Like China really accepted it manufacturing as the base for the populations, and today they are the manufacturer of the world. Not only for this industry, for every other industry also they are manufacturers. If you look at India, India went into more of a service industry more.
नहीं सर, मैं तो बांग्लादेश और वियतनाम की बात कर रहा हूँ पल्लव सर, मैं तो
Bangladesh and Vietnam followed that because they felt that manufacturing is important for them to survive, for their population that is coming up, to give them the jobs. So there was definitely a more focus into manufacturing compared to India. And especially for this particular industry, it was easy because Bangladesh, if you see, like it has happened only in these last 20 years, 15 to 20 years, if I look at it. 2002, 2004, in that period, if you look at it, India was bigger than Bangladesh. Even 2010, it was neck to neck. Then Bangladesh focused on this industry because if you talk of manufacturing also, I think Bangladesh manufactures mainly apparel. They don't have much of any other industry. If I talk about still, like 85% of their exports is coming from only this. 20% of their GDP or 18 or 20% GDP is still coming from this apparel. So yes, Bangladesh thought that, okay, this is one industry which can give them a runway. So I think somehow that became the pillar industry for that country.
What did stop us, sir?
So India, I think, is a big country, and somehow, like this particular industry, garment industry, was initially in a small scale. So as a result, the Tatas and the builders or the big Reliances and all, none of them focused on this because it had a limitation. You can
But you thought joining this company so that you had the vision of making it as a global company, right? But
So yeah, so I'm talking about, okay, so now I'm coming back to 2019. So when I'm leaving, like my company Gap wanted me that, okay, I was already a vice president for 4 or 5 years now in that company. They wanted me to give a promotion and take a position in their head office. And I was not the one who was willing to move out of India. So that the main reason was that, like, I found that India, I cannot be a senior VP because India was not a big manufacturing hub. If I moved to Hong Kong, then I could be a next level and I could have stayed back in that company. So yes, so that means that India needed one of those bigger companies, bigger stories, and then people can follow. Yes, today we have a couple of companies, at least one company is there which is bigger than Pearl also. in India. So naturally, they are not in the listed sphere, but yes, it is possible to have a big thing in India now. And in the last 5 years, we are seeing more and more interest from the government to promote this particular industry. Because if you see, the first like farm to factory happens in this kind of industry well. And because if you're in the export sector, then the compliance part, that means the workers are taken care of, they get their full dues, they get the good and working environment. So those are the good things, attractive things that is there, which most of the other countries really exploited, and they found that, okay, this is an industry to be promoted. India is waking up to that, I guess, at this point of time.
Sir, sorry,
And in the, yeah.
Sanjay ji.
No, थोड़ा इसमें just say I just want to add to this point as to we कि इंडिया में ग्रोथ का क्या कंस्ट्रेंट था. If you look at just 5 years before, there are many direct incentive, or there are some policies which are directly impacting the growth or the investment in the sector that were only a transaction and very short term driven policies. I mean, you could get a clarity of only for 11 months, and then after that, what happens to that? Those policies was anybody guess, and you got to really um, keep on guessing about it. Whether it will be there or not there. The financial institution will put a lot of questions. So, if an entrepreneur has to set up a factory, initial 3 year is just that you start to the gestation period is there, and if you deal with an uncertainty of certain key influencer financial metrics, then you really held back your investment also in that particular sector. I think that was what was lacking, which is getting addressed to some extent. If you see in the last 3, 4 years, there has been a lot of thrust, a lot of actions have been done. Of course, there is a lot to do if we have to really target, $50 billion of export. But there are certain steps, statewide level and the central level, which are being taken as of now, which is what give us a good hope and opportunity for the sector also to grow in the times to come.
Sir, sorry, I'm spending a bit time on this because I think it's very important, because जब तक sector clear नहीं होगा ना sir, तो for us you pick up any even the best of the company, कुछ फायदा नहीं होगा उसका. So that is why I'm spending time. Sir, our big thesis is that, as you rightly said, the government focus was not there, and the government focus has come back on manufacturing since last, I think 2019 से जब वो corporate tax काटा था, and we have seen that the government has been coming back to sectors which were just ignored. And now we understand that we have the capability to export also. Autos mein hua, pharma mein hua, chemicals mein hua, then we saw defense and railways mein hua. Now, my only question is that, do you think that this kind of big trend, I'm not talking about next 1 or 2, 3 quarters, but a big trend could be visible in textile as a sector, because now the policies are getting changed, barring the US tariff, which is still unknown. But UK, EU, UK is done, EU will be done in next 3, 4 months, or maybe early. But do you think now we are setting up a stage, what Bangladesh saw their, I think exports jumping from $1 to $20 billion after that FTA happened? Is India gearing for that in the textile sector or not? Or do you think abhi bahut kaam baki hai Varinder, itna mat soch?
The biggest thing that India government is talking about is the PM Mitra Park. So that means they're trying to create that ecosystem where if you invest, you have everything in a small area. So that means, India, if you look at it, one of the case study that government did was the Tirupur, one area location where everything was there. And that really helps this particular industry. If you look at Bangladesh, although they are doing about $45 billion of garment exports, but most of the things are happening from Dhaka or surrounding Dhaka. So yes, in a location, if you have the mill, if you have all the trim suppliers, if you have the people, management, staff, all kind of thing comes in one area, then the ecosystem becomes, and this particular trade needs that speed also. So yes, that's something is happening. Financially, like what Sanjay talked about, the kind of push that is needed, because once you put up a greenfield project, it takes a couple of years to come back into the full speed. So for that period of time, and these are it's not a big investment. So naturally, very, very, even small entrepreneurs also can get into it. The other big thing that I feel that India lacked was the investment from other countries. As I just talked in the beginning of our discussion, that the big players are the Chinese, Taiwanese, South Koreans. Now they have moved from many countries, and Israelis also have moved from many countries, one country to other, because the industry so far historically has been only in the places where the labor cost was low. So earlier it was to be garments were manufactured in New York. Let's say if you go back 1920, If you talk about 1940s, 50s, 60s, in that period, the USSR, the Eastern Bloc countries were manufacturing a lot of garments. Then it moved into Asia. China became the biggest hub. Now that after that, you are seeing that Vietnam and Bangladesh and other places are coming up. So yes, it goes just for the cost also. As the cost of labor goes up, it moves to another country. But somehow, like in India, if you look at it, there is zero foreign investment that has happened in this sector from people. But if you go to Bangladesh or Vietnam and every other place, the industry started by some other players who came in, got that ease of business, and then immediately they started. Then everybody, the local people also got hooked onto this thing. So these are a couple of things that India has to do better. Then things would be much more. But yes, today what we are seeing is that all the states have got activated. So they are giving a lot of benefits to win the industry. And then of course the PLI scheme that came up after pandemic. So there are minor corrections are needed, which government is now doing. Like recently, they brought down the limit for a garment factory from 100 crore to a 50 crore limit. So those are things in the positive direction that government is now taking. And of course, if the long policies are made for a longer period of time, that means 4 years, 5 years, it won't be touched, then people will be more comfortable in investing.
Sir,
So
ये
far,
ये
Sanjay,
the reality है. But again, sorry, okay, because a lot of hope is there, okay, कि यार अच्छा हो जाएगा. As I said, UK, EU, how big those FTAs could be for the textile industry, one. And second, all these remain hope, or do you think कि boss Varinder अभी textile as a sector could grow by 15-20% CAGR going ahead?
सर मेरा आइडिया तो ये है कि टेक्सटाइल इन साइलो रहना बड़ा मुश्किल होगा. इट हैज टू बी इंटरनेशनल बिजनेस. दैट्स व्हाई लाइक इफ यू सी अ पर्ल is a very international kind of business. So it cannot be like limited to only one geography, one policy, and one structure. Then your company gets affected. But then if you have that flexibility to move around and जहाँ पे ease आपको business ज़्यादा दिख रहा है वहाँ पे आप बढ़ा सकते हो. So that's something like Pearl, we are doing it very effectively now. I think that's kind of, then of course it doesn't mean that India will be neglected and I should all invest outside. India जिस टाइम पे जैसे opportunities आ रहा है, जैसे now the states are opening up. And if you look at it, which states? Every state, if it opens up, it's not interest to me. Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, those are like already there are all these big industries are there. And I'm talking about first generation workforce, like which is coming from farm to the first factory. Here, a woman or a man can be taught how to run a sewing machine in a period of maybe 35, 40 or 60 days fairly well. And then the efficiency starts going up. So naturally, it can be quickly trained and more people. I need more people on the machines or on the factory. So those are the states are of UP, Bihar, Odisha, where the population density is very high, Madhya Pradesh. So if as those states are coming into this game, I think we will see a very bright future going forward. And yes, if center can ensure like, okay, these are the policies which the states are coming up with, those are adhered to or they can combine together, then definitely it's a huge boost for the industry.
So having been there in different in different geographies, what are some of your key learnings from each of these geographies that probably India can bring in, like you mentioned, the PM Mitra parks or making Tirupur the hub for these things. So especially in terms of supply chain and in terms of the technology. So what do you think are the key learnings that Indian players can also do to catch up?
So you first spoke about the government. So government, let Sanjay speak. Like, that means the finance and the, one-stop window or something like which can
Yeah, yeah.
be clear. Sanjay, why don't you speak on this?
So, I mean, I just give you very simple example as to how things work, let's say in Bangladesh or Vietnam. Let's say you apply for a financing loan or working capital from a bank. Now, they understand, the complete cycle of the garment factory if you set up a new unit. Therefore, their tenure of the term loan will be in line with the particular sector requirement. If they know that there is a only RMG manufacturing, that much is the gestation period, so their moratorium period has to be aligned with that. If it is a backward integration, the moratorium period should be aligned with that. And if it is a sustainable factory coming in, they already reduce the interest rate, which make it very competitive for any entrepreneur to set up a new factory. And then they also, and now despite having a high interest rate in a local currency in Bangladesh, the project which are coming for setting up a factory, even in this current environment, uncertain environment, where the interest rate is going as high as 11% or 12% on a short-term borrowing, for a long-term loan, which is a sustainable factory, if you're setting up a project, the interest rate can go between 6 to 8%. Now, this even in current environment in India, which is not facing the challenges which are there in Bangladesh, given the various other political scenario which the country is facing, still we get 9 to 11%. And I can say with multiple dialogue, the amount of the time the bank they will take to sanction the loan will be much shorter. In a 1 month or 1.5 months, we'll have the complete term loan sanction and disbursement ready. And here it is takes a lot of process. The moratorium sometimes does not match up with the gestation period. The interest goes on a very high side period. That's on the long term when you start the factory. And then when you go ahead, as you keep on building, your working capital requirement comes into play. In which case, what you look at is in India, for example, there was the interest subvention scheme which was there. Now, I was mentioning that earlier, 4 and 5 years ago, it was only extended for 11 months time period. Now, look at you submitting a proposal, complete business proposal of setting up a factory to the bank. The bank will come up, okay, you give a scenario when the interest rate goes up by 3%, when the interest subvention scheme is not there. Now, 11 months after, if you have to prepare those scenarios, that will make the whole project, percentage comes down significantly. And that has an impact on the return on capital employed, return on equity, which really kind of dissuade anybody to really go for those kind of investment. So these are some very basic areas which really make it difficult.
मैं सॉरी मैं वही सोच रहा हूँ, ये तो 10
हाँ
साल
जी,
से क्यों ना सर अपने को कि चाइना में क्या हो रहा है, बांग्लादेश में क्या हो रहा है, ये सब पता है, बट फिर भी हम वो स्टेप्स क्यों नहीं ले पाते एज अ कंट्री फॉर द सेक्टर.
As a country, I think if you see, like there have been very little capital investment. The kind of expectations that as a country we should have, I think that investment has come down quite low. Post-pandemic, if I'm talking about, where at least the interest, your taxation was changed, but still, like there's not much of investment that has happened. I think there are these are small gaps which needs to be much more sectorially looked into and worked upon. But as I said, like always there is a dark side and there always is a brighter side. The brighter side is that the states are now going. The states
yes.
are like really willing to work together. And I've experienced in some cases like it has moved like with a very fast speed also. But it depends on which team is sitting on the other side, which are the government officers. Somebody takes a lot of interest and then really do it very fast.
How
So
much are
just
you excited, sir, with the FTAs like UK or EU working the stock markets and people like us get very excited? Like, are you opening up your purses, doing capex, thinking about it?
Yes, sure. So that's something like, if you look at us, like we have been projecting growth. We are still a growing company. And, if I talk of a global view, like what was the, reason for which, as you were asking, like why I came into Pearl. So yes, the company has to be one of those global players, which are multi-billion dollars size. So I'm not talking about, in millions, I'm talking about in billions. So naturally, how to get there? That means there would be expansion. So we have made a complete path, and on that path we are progressing. And of course, like depending on the geopolitics, depending on some of the, what you call disruption, and every disruption also gives you some kind of opportunity. So whether it was the Bangladesh regime change or it is now the tariff, everything is also one way of looking at it is that there is a disruption. The other way is that what are the opportunities that is coming up? That means the business is moving. Something is being shaken up. So there are a lot of opportunities at this point of time. So we are growing. We are a growing company. We would be growing. And the countries mainly that I have looked into, which can be a big pillars, would be countries like India, Bangladesh, Vietnam. So these three, there is a lot of opportunities at this point of time.
So on this point, can you just help us to understand how is the business model of Pearl Global different from other textile companies? Because कई बार सबको लगता है कि टेक्सटाइल सब एक ही जैसा है, टैरिफ लगा तो सबको इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा. Okay, how is Pearl Global? जैसे आपने बोला, you left everything and joined only Pearl Global. There should be something unique about the company.
Yeah. So if you're talking about textile and if you're talking about garments, which is related to fashion, so I think it cannot be related to only one location. It has to be multiple because the market is always international. So if you look at Pearl Global today, so we are operating out of 10 different countries, out of which 5 is manufacturing, and which are basically India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Guatemala. These are the places where we have our own factories where we are manufacturing garments. And we have also design offices where we are working very closely with the customers. That's in USA, in London, in UK, in Spain, And also we had in Hong Kong, because a lot of the industry, the buying was happening from Hong Kong. So these global players, they had offices in Hong Kong and they used to operate from there. Of course, now a little bit of geopolitics happening. Hong Kong is part of China now. So things have cooled down a little bit from that angle. But yeah, these are the places like, where we have our own office, showroom, and the designers. Now the designers from Hong Kong has moved out. We have moved them to Vietnam and Indonesia and all. So that's something as a company, like we are talking about global fashion and various category of products. We are not only making shirts, but blouses, pants, trousers, denims, outerwear, all kind of jackets. We are making all kind of knitted tees, the active athleisure wear. So like that, you've got multiple categories. So we are making today 7 different categories of products. So we are multi-country, multi-category, and of course, very heavy in design. So that means we are not asking the customer to give us the design and then we manufacture, basically, what you call contract manufacturing, but we are providing the design. So when we sat down together, all these professionals, so we created our mission vision statement. So at that point of time, so we said that we are more of a supply chain solution. So not purely a manufacturer, but a complete supply chain solution. So we are talking about the design, trend, sourcing of raw material, manufacturing the goods, and delivering also. So this end to end, how do I provide those kind of solutions? So that's the journey that we are undergoing at Pearl at this point of time. And if you compare it with the other Indian players, so there are two kind of players out here. Either they're pure garment manufacturer, or they are some vertically integrated into the spinning or weaving or processing of the fabrics. So that's how like it's different. So we have not gone into vertical background in terms of manufacturing, but more forward. So we are providing the solution of the supply chain. We are across the multiple markets. We are not focused on one market. Many players you will find that they're many focused on one or two markets because location jahan par hai. Now, if I compare with countries like Bangladesh and Cambodia, the next door neighbors of ours, or Sri Lanka, they had a GSP benefit because of least developed countries.
So this kind of business model is adopted by, say, the larger firms when we talk about, say, Bangladesh, Vietnam.
No. So if you see
Why did you choose this? Because sorry,
so
because
okay. So I'm just trying to say there are two kind of players. One could be a local players.
like गोकुलदास का
Bangladesh.
भी मेरे ख्याल में सर मल्टी कंट्री नहीं है गोकुलदास का भी या केपीआर का भी या आप जो अनलिस्टेड वाले की बात कर रहे थे राइट तो
Yeah.
why did you choose this kind of a business model?
As I said, like, this particular industry has to be international because you're talking about an international trend of the business where the cost is low, which handwriting which country has. So either you become very specific, one particular product, one particular geography, or you're talking about a solution to the retailer. So I'm talking about solution to the retailer. So that means a retailer will not buy only shirts or only t-shirts. A fashion brand will not buy only one product. So they will have a whole gamut of product. And if I have to make all this product, India is strong in only one or two items. इंडिया में आप देखेंगे सिर्फ कॉटन प्रोडक्ट ज्यादा बिकता है whereas world over में 70% of the sales that is happening is on synthetics. Only 30% would be like more of a natural fiber like cotton or linens and all. So naturally, there's a huge disproportion that India has missed out on those kind of opportunities, which is now coming up. India is loosening up the the man-made fibers and all. So those lot of things has to yet to be done. But yeah, so if you are talking about a global solution, then you have to be in 2 or 3 locations to provide that. Bangladesh has developed themselves as the biggest denim manufacturer of the world. Any kind of indigo denim जो हम लोग use करते हैं. So India missed out on that opportunity. So yes, why shouldn't I utilize that opportunity out of Bangladesh and then see what can be made in India also of that denim? Similarly, like, the synthetics, if you look of it, so China and then Vietnam, Indonesia, they became very strong in that categories, especially the outerwear, jackets, high altitudes. So India can make it, but they are the hubs. So why don't you utilize the strength of that hub also and then still make it in India? I can do both. So those are the advantages that Pearl could bring onto the table, which I think slowly other companies are also opening up to those opportunities.
Just to just to add in terms of the manufacturing unit number in perspective, the total manufacturing unit Pearl Global has is 25. And out of that 25, the capacity to produce is 93.2 million pieces. across the geography, like the manufacturing locations are India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Guatemala. India will be around 24.5, which will contribute around 20% plus to the overall capacity. So this is a very important factor to consider when anyone is looking at the impact of tariff announcement as to how much the top line and the bottom line is going to be impacted immediate in a short term perspective if anyone has to look at it. Sometime in the flow of the information, as you rightly said, you know, all the sectors, all the companies are viewed as in one mirror, which is not the case with the Pearl Global, where 20% is coming from in terms of the manufacturing capacity and in terms of the sales to the particular geography. Also, it varies from geography to geography. So these are the metrics which are important to look at it when anyone is analyzing the company and looking at it, how much the tariff will impact to this company or with other companies.
So
Just wanted, yeah.
let's get away with this US tariffs because this is a question which is on everyone's mind and big noise. So if I understand you correctly, you are saying that only 15 to 20% of the business could get impacted by US tariffs.
Yes,
15 to yes, 15 to 16%. Yeah.
that number comes up to 15-16% for us.
15-16% in terms of the sales value. Yeah.
And is that getting impacted, or do you think it will get impacted say going ahead? Because I think Q2 का तो booking already हो गया होगा पहले से.
See, impact का मतलब ये है कि like we have a choice. So our customers also are telling us that why don't you move some of this business to the other countries and what
Exactly.
is the wallet share?
The lucky one to be spread
Yeah.
over.
But then the challenge is that then immediately अगर मैं उसको move करता हूँ, तो then this gap which is get created in India, how do I fill that up? So there has to be brought in the business from other countries. So that's what is happening now. So the other countries here will further go up in India. That means I'm not talking about non-US markets.
तो सॉरी हिंदी में समझते हैं सर इसको. अगर 100 रुपए का सेल करते हो आप, तो आगे जाके आई शुड एज्यूम कि आप 85 का सेल करोगे जब तक यूएस से क्लैरिटी नहीं होता कि टैरिफ का क्या होगा.
देखिए हमारे पास पहले से ही वी आर बिग टाइम इनटू अदर मार्केट्स आल्सो. सो इफ आई लुक एट द टोटल बिजनेस टुडे company wide across all the locations, less than 50% goes into USA, which used to be like a few years back till about 2021-22 it was to be about 85-86% was USA. So we have grown very significantly in the other markets like Japan, Australia, Europe, UK. So these are the markets that really have grown. As a result, like today, the ratio is between less than 50% goes to US, about 48-49% are, and Baki goes to the other countries of the globe. So naturally, whatever is going into the USA, the tariff challenge comes in. Whatever is not going to the USA, this tariff is not there because most of the other countries have not changed anything so far. So that's what the reality is. Now, if we talk about India specifically, so India, if I had looked into my last year's number, about 60% was going into USA, and India was contributing about 25% of the global business of our turnover, global turnover. So that way, the maths comes out to about 15-16% was my exposure into the US. So this year, like
from India.
From India. So
Yes.
that's why that particular business has to immediately maybe move to some other countries, or I find another solution to this particular one. And somehow this gap, whatever is created, has to be filled up by the others. So yes, as we were projecting, we got the visibility, पहले से ही visibility आना शुरू हो रहा था. So naturally, we were pushing in the other markets. Okay, we should book more from Japan. We should book more from Australia. So that action has been on. So how much this 15% कितना reduce करके कितना impact मैं ultimately लूँ? हो सकता है 4-5% का impact आएगा, हो सकता है 7-8% का impact आएगा. So that's the kind of thing that we are going into. Good things, like for example, if you are talking of this topic, India recently this GST has opened up. So that might give some kind of impetus to the domestic business. So far, as Pearl, we were not catering to the domestic market at all. So this is an opportunity to look into that as well. If something is really happening there, how we can contribute. So those are opportunities that we're looking into.
So as I understand, you're saying that the total business which could get impacted is 15-16%, but that's not also final because there could be other levers to compensate for it, okay? Going ahead, whether you move into other geographies or you get into India, right? So, God knows, but, it could be half of it or whatever it is, right? But
also, like, I must correct you on one thing, which is you talk about specifically in India isolation. But if you look at it, the opportunity that this is giving us for our Bangladesh or Vietnam business, because they are in the growth phase. And if India, if this, let's say, worst situation, this tariff remains for some more time, then India has an exposure of $6 billion or almost 5.7 or $5.8 billion of garment exports to USA. So that business is going to shift out to a certain extent. हमारा तो हम कर ही रहे हैं थोड़ा बहुत, और जो यहाँ पे दूसरा alternate solution ढूंढ रहे हैं. But the same retailer is also asking me to do some more. And it's not only India, this is happening. Remember, it's happening with China also. So India has got at 50, China is also at about 35, 36 plus. उनका भी जो effective rate आ रहा है 50 के ऊपर जा रहा है कुछ products में. So those are the two countries from where the business is shifting out at this point of time. So naturally, there's a growth that is substantial growth that is happening in countries like Vietnam or Bangladesh or Indonesia. So overall, if you talk about, may not be a dent. But if you talk of specifically in India, then yes, this is my challenge, that this 15% I should be replacing it quickly so that यहाँ पे मैं drop ना करूँ.
Margin,
Sir,
sir.
but wouldn't China be using Vietnam as a destination probably to offshore some of its goods?
I didn't understand the question. See,
Also,
what is that I'm
my,
talking
my
about
point is,
US.
wouldn't China be using some of its resources in Vietnam to offset some of this?
See, China, let's talk about US first. US has imposed a tariff which is high in manufacturing countries like India and China, where apparel was going from. Compared to Vietnam, Bangladesh and all, which are at 20% level, these are the countries which are at 35 and 50% level. So naturally, there is some business the customers would like to not source from China anymore, but give it to Vietnam. So if Chinese company comes and put up a factory in Vietnam, that's a separate story that you must be talking about. But I'm talking about from our Pearl point of view. I'm already getting more queries from the customer to do in Vietnam or in Indonesia or in Bangladesh.
सर मार्जिन्स पे फर्क भी पड़ेगा क्योंकि ठीक है रेवेन्यू का तो आपने बोल दिया कि द क्वेश्चन मार्क इज 15-60%. लेट्स सी व्हाट हैपेंस गोइंग अहेड बट मार्जिन्स बिकॉज़ with the con calls, I think most of the people are assuming 2-3% margin hit भी हो सकता है.
So proportionate to that revenue, in the short term, there will be some impact. Unless, while the whole restructuring, reorganizing strategy is being worked out with all the retailer across geographies, I think in the short term period, which is let's say 1 quarter or two, there will be some impact which will be there on the margin for some part of the business, which we just mentioned about, 50 out of 15, 16 also, there is some part of the business where there will be impact. The impact will vary. And then how much it will translate into the overall impact is something we'll come to know, in the, I can't be specific about the numbers, but yes, there is some impact, but the impact will be marginal. So as to say, given the, if you look at our historically also 85 to 95% of the profit is concentrated in overseas location, and those are either maintained or they are getting strengthened further.
एक और क्वेश्चन बहुत इन्वेस्टर्स पूछते हैं मुझसे कि इन्वेंट्री लॉस ना हो जाए यार, कि बहुत सारी टेक्सटाइल कंपनी से क्या होता है कि इन्वेंट्री लॉस ना आ जाए,
Inventory loss in our industry for RMG segment can only happen if at all it happens, with the order cancellation, right? We don't have any situation of inventory loss where we are sourcing the fabric against the order only. There's a particular style and the style is linked to the fabric, and then only this entire chain works with us. So we are not really keeping the fabric inventory with us, and that can be the loss coming sitting on our balance sheet. That situation is not there across the geographies. If you look at our cycle time for the inventory is hardly around 70 or 80 days time period, which means from fabric to conversion, that's the time period it takes. So we are not really carrying any number of days of high inventory as well. So these two factors we monitor across geographies. One is the conversion time, and the second is the aging of the inventory to really look at the quality of the product. So that risk is not existing for us.
Sir, एक और क्वेश्चन. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sanjay, sir. That was very, very important. Okay. एक क्वेश्चन मेरे दिमाग में और आता है, sir, because now everyone is always thinks about अगले क्वार्टर क्या होगा, Now we all know. I think the market already knows that second quarter में whatever छोटा disruption हो सकता है, ठीक है. But the UK FTA, which will come, say, I think second half से उसके नंबर आने चालू हो जाएंगे. EU FTA भी होने वाला है. But I'm saying for the full year FY26 and of course going ahead in FY27, do you think that the levers of growth, what you're telling me, MFTA हुआ, UK हुआ, EU FTA हुआ, will compensate for you specifically as a company for whatever loss you see from the US tariff?
UK and EU FTA will give an opportunity for the Indian business. That means what today, typically a style which or a garment that I would like to make it in India, but because of this 12% difference or 10% difference of price, the customer asks us to make it in Bangladesh or Vietnam. So that will not be there. So that challenge goes away. So India, मेरा India की जो bottom line है, that will start improving in that situation. But we are not missing an opportunity आज भी, because we are already in Bangladesh and in Vietnam, and both these countries there is already a duty-free advantage that is there.
So you're saying you're already serving the UK and these markets via Bangladesh and Vietnam.
So what we are seeing is that the customers are very much interested, because what has happened, because see, Bangladesh, Cambodia, these are the two countries. Sri Lanka में थोड़ा सा problem हुआ था because of all the politics and all. So these two countries continuously enjoyed that LDC status and a duty-free benefit for a very long time. As a result, most of these European companies and the UK companies are very heavily exposed in these countries, Cambodia and Bangladesh. Now, because of this geopolitics, or not geopolitics, even the local politics, the disturbance that they have experienced, so they want to diversify. You don't want to buy 70-80% of your buy only from one country because there is a duty advantage. So those business would like to flow into India, but it was stopped because of this tariff barrier, because there was this 12% extra duty or tariff that the customer had to pay. So that is going away. So India के लिए अच्छा है. Definitely, there a lot of business will come into India as well from these countries.
Sir, I know that no one knows this, but पूछ लेता हूँ आपसे, आपको क्या लगता है सर, ये 50% टैरिफ रहेगा कि 25% हो जाएगा? I don't know whether you have been conversing with the government authorities in India or not. आपको क्या लगता है?
So इसमें तो definitely Indian, see what has happened is that the Trump administration is a very different kind of administration. If you talk of world politics, like they are going at a very high speed and they are going in a particular way. So everybody had a problem, whether it was Japan, it was South Korea, it was European Union, everybody had a problem, but they've all found out a solution and they have signed a deal. There is, because of certain reason, India is not signing that deal. So which we don't know. Whether it will be like today, we hear from our government that, okay, we will be signing a deal most probably by the end of November or something, then things should be better. So I will take that on that face value. Yes, I don't see any reason for this penalty or this high tariff because India is a more attractive market for US. Logically, it doesn't make sense. Now, what is happening internally between the Indian administration and US administration, it's anybody's guess.
Sir, I was honestly hoping, sir, that exporters get some incentive, with whatever is going on. I think there was a statement by FM also mentioning that they will never leave the exporters high and dry. I don't know, कुछ आया नहीं सर उसके ऊपर. या आपको कुछ मिला हो तो आप बता दीजिए.
नहीं, अभी तक तो हमने भी ऐसा कुछ सुना नहीं है. So yes, I think that means they must be knowing that, okay, this is only a temporary phase. It will go away in a very short time. I don't know what's the truth. So yes, there are certain things like, for example, the interest subversion scheme and all, which was there, which got scrapped, or which, I don't know, it got hold. That should be immediately started. There are some small things which are already prevalent. And I don't know, like why those were moved and is the timing okay for moving them or not. So those are things I think Indian government can do immediately. But most important, whatever government wants to do, they have to do it immediately. Otherwise, if this stays for a long period of time, 5-6 महीने में अगर रुक जाता है ऐसा tariff, then a lot of small players will move out. They will not be able to sustain this.
There's lots of things going on, sir. बाकी आपने जैसे त्रिपुरा बोला, an unemployment situation and all. Like people like you or other bigger companies, 2-3 companies in India में, which might sustain because of the balance sheet size and all. But a lot of smaller players will get impacted surely.
Yeah. See, India has, if you're talking about this country-specific markets, like US, we are seeing a lot of uncertainty. There are 2 or 3 things might happen in US. If this tariff remains, not about India, but in general, there's a tariff across all the place. So as a result, the cost of goods for the retailers have gone up by almost 20%. For India से 50% ऊपर चला गया, बाकी सब जगह से 20%. पहले भी वो टैरिफ देते थे because of MFN, whatever this multi-fiber agreement जो था MFA और most favored nations का एक टैरिफ होता था. So that के ऊपर another 20% लग गया है. From other countries and from India it is 50%. So that is an extra cost to that market. So naturally, that cost will be passed on to the consumer also. The market might shrink a little bit. So we have to see what happens to US over this next 1 year. So so naturally, like, our strategy was to diversify. So it was good timing for us. We were lucky. And India has got some FTAs already. For example, Australia, Japan, in सब के साथ बहुत पहले से FTA है, and these are also big market. So UK and Japan, if you talk about it, are very similar market. And Japan के साथ FTA हमारे पास बहुत दिनों से है. But Japan में काम करना थोड़ा मुश्किल है because the quality requirement is very high. They don't take any kind of defect. They want zero defect. So that means an extra investment is needed to get into that kind of level of manufacturing. So Pearl, fortunately, has been investing on it for the last 5 years. So today we have a sizable Japan market. So we want to grow it further. So those kind of opportunities may not be in general so easy for everybody in the market. But yeah, somebody has been focused on it, then they will start. There are some opportunities in the world at this point of time which can be taken. Australia is another FTA market. There we don't, Bangladesh को जो benefit मिलता है हमको भी उतने benefit मिलेगा.
Sir,
Europe, UK में they have an advantage.
but sir, I agree with you what you're saying, but मैं बोल रहा हूँ sir कि if this US tariff situation doesn't get solved, it will be difficult for the industry to grow.
Yes, I agree.
You are in a very good situation because of the multi-country, production,
Yeah.
what you have done. But I'm saying as a country, as an industry, it will be very difficult because अभी तक
Because out of total 15 or 16 billion dollars that we have exported, like even last 3 years average, if you look at, out of the 16, almost 6 billion is going to US. And maybe another 2 or 3 billion is going to other countries, which because of the US companies. So there are certain brands in USA, for example, Nike, ले लीजिए, या फिर, all these kind of brands are global brands. So the buying happens from US and the goods goes to all over the other places. So those are the people, like if they're not focused on India, then it's a loss for India.
almost 50%.
Since the whole tariff situation, and I mean we also operate in Vietnam and Bangladesh, which both are tariffed at this point. So what kind of conversations are we having with our retailers now, with reference to passing on the pain or sharing it at some point,
So
in terms of pricing?
So when it started, then definitely most of these retailers came back. जब वो पहला 10% tariff जब लगा था, so a lot of people came back. Like, it's a huge impact for us. We wanted to share it, so we had to share maybe 1 or 2% or 3%. We had to share. Now, when all the declaration came on in this whatever 31st July के आसपास जब सारे countries का जब आ गया था, then there was no further negotiation because see they cannot go from threaten one country and go to the other country. So uske baad, at least for the countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam and all, we don't have that challenge anymore. Now it's a new norm. So they have to figure it out ki how much to pass on and by what time they have to pass on to the consumer. India, because we are at a different level of 50%, so most of the retailers are still talking to us कि India से अगर आप ship कर रहे हो, then you please burden share. And अगर वो 25% penalty अगर हटाना है, so that means I have to give almost about 14 to 15% kind of discount. रिबेट देना पड़ेगा उनको बिकॉज अगर मैं एफओबी को उतना कम कर लेता हूँ, माई फ्रेट ऑन बोर्ड इज रिड्यूस बाय दैट मच अमाउंट, देन द ड्यूटी जो पे करने के बाद का जो लैंडेड प्राइस होगा दैट विल बी इक्विवेलेंट टू विदाउट द पेनल्टी जो होना चाहिए. सो दैट्स दे आर आस्किंग फॉर दैट शेयर.
So if this whole 50% thing continues, and I hope it doesn't, but if it does, then would you consider deferring your India capex plans, or would they still be intact?
So
जो future में करना है.
Yeah, I have to definitely delink as a business person, like as a professional sitting on this chair. I have to delink from US my India capex plans. So India capex plan will be not related to US. It should be related to the other countries for now. If it comes in, it's extra bonus. उसके बाद का जो plan होगा वो standard will be, I think. I don't know, Sanjay, you add to this, please.
No, yeah, I mean, I think so far our capex which we have done in Bihar, which we mentioned also in our early call, we have done largely capex in plant and machinery and the utilities around that. It was a plug and play model, which means that the building was constructed, and that's what the deal. Which that's what we are mentioning, that every state is encouraging the industry to be set up. And by the way, we are the first exporter from India to have factory in Bihar, and so these all plant and machinery are movable. They are fungible across geographies. I mean, I'm just saying from the capital investment risk perspective also, while the strategy to really look at viability of the project from a non-US customer perspective, at the same time, you got to see your C and D plan. What do you do with those machinery should the situation take a little longer than what you anticipate? Business is business. It's a dynamic situation which keep on happening. So we continued with Bihar, and it's already up and running with of course, It's a scale up in a gradual manner. Now it's a 400 to 450 machine. It will have the capacity to go to 800 machine. Madhya Pradesh, we have already a land allotment, but yes, we are going. Stated that even at that point in time, without the tariff situation, that our greenfield capex in Madhya Pradesh will be once we achieve desired return on capital employed in Bihar capex. So we are always following a calibrated approach in terms of the capex with or without tariff. Of course, at times you have to go to strategic capex that we do, but then at the same, that is a very calculated and very aligned business call which is taken. In general, we follow this kind of a return-driven capex decision across geographies.
Right. So just a small follow-up question, since you mentioned Bihar and Madhya Pradesh. So considering that these destinations, they would have relatively lower labor costs, assuming they do, how do our labor costs in those regions stack up against the likes of Bangladesh or Vietnam? Like, what is the gap there then?
So,
So,
see,
yeah, Pallab, you please add.
so in India, more or less every state, the minimum wage is similar. It's in the same range of about 14,000. Oh, 500-600 रुपए plus minus होता है. If you go to any state, one state to the other. So minimum wage के हिसाब से तो it's the same cost. But if you see, like, running a factory we have factories in Haryana and Gurgaon, or in Chennai or in Bangalore, metropolitan cities, where the wage earner who is working in the factory would like to earn much, much more. So they have to survive. They cannot survive in 14,000 there. But in places like Bihar and Madhya Pradesh, 14,000 is a good enough money because they're not paying the rent. They're staying in their own house and own home. Their expenses are much lesser. So that's an attraction that is drawing us to this kind of places. Then you can have much more disciplined labor. Otherwise, they're very floating labor. जहाँ पे ज़्यादा थोड़ा सा भी 50 रुपए 100 रुपए ज़्यादा मिल रहा है या पे कुछ opportunity ज़्यादा opportunistic, then they would go back to the villages, they would come back. So we are seeing that kind of problems in Haryana, in Bangalore, and in Chennai. So Bihar, Madhya Pradesh is an attraction, or I have some partner factories in Odisha also. So where we are finding that this problem is addressed because the laborers at their home, they can happily work at a lower, whatever the minimum wage plus something, and cannot just aspire for a big amount of money or not properly getting trained. So those are the options we have in these states.
Sir,
So
have you
attrition
changed?
also
So,
would be relatively lower versus
yeah, so
south-based
that,
factories.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so that's
Okay.
what this second factor which Pallab mentioned about discipline of the labor in our, while we are observing the HR related data in across the factory and the productivity, I think the more disciplined the labor are, the more higher the productivity is there. So the real factor to look at between Bangladesh and India, of course, there is a wage difference between Bangladesh and India. Bangladesh is on the lower side, while Vietnam is on the higher side. But the productivity in both this country is very, very high compared to some factory, some location in India. And that's where when you go to the places like Madhya Pradesh and Bihar or Odisha, the intention is to really address this particular factor of discipline among the laborers, skilled labor and unskilled labor also, so that entire production capacity can be ramped up, efficiency can be.
So talking of minimum wages, India is around $180 if you look at it. 14,000 जैसे मैं बता रहा था. And if I talk of Bangladesh, they're still in the range of about $120 a month. And Vietnam, Indonesia, these are crossing now 300 marks. So 280 to 320 in that range. Guatemala would be slightly more expensive. Yeah, these are the countries that we are operating from. But as Sanjay mentioned, because of the stability of the workforce, because of the discipline, because of less attrition, the productivity and all becomes very different.
So have you changed or deferred our capex plans at all after this US tariff?
Not yet.
No. We see, as I was just mentioning, that our plan to go for the second phase of capex in India was always when we get a return on in first capex, which was already on the plant and machinery in Bihar. It was already a scaled down capex given the integration policy which state government had it. So we are not really made any change there. In fact, I just to mention that in Bangladesh we are as we speak, we are already embarked on a greenfield factory project. The investment is about 10 million, 12 million to $14 million. And then there is a laundry capex also, which is happening for about similar amount, $10 to $12 million. So our capex in Bangladesh is going at the speed and some of the factor also I mentioned on the financing side and the return, and I said that all those factors are there, which are really making us compelling decision not to really stop the capex there. We are actively looking for opportunity in Vietnam as well. Um, so that's where on the capex side, just to really mention that we are taking a calibrated approach, but there is no deferment per se that is a full stop which has been put in there. Uh, India, we already had a plan with or without tariff. The first capex has to start generating a return before we go to the second capex, and that policy remains there. I think with tariff, it becomes even more important to really go get those and make sure that those returns are also sustainable. Then you go for the second one. So that's the brief on the capex part.
No, good sir, good, very good sir. One hypothetical question, okay? अभी जैसा सिचुएशन है वैसे ही रहता है टैरिफ का. Are we right in saying that the company will still grow at 15% CAGR for the next 2-3 years revenue?
Yeah, that I'm pretty much confident of.
और अगर 25% टैरिफ आ जाता है सर, then
Yeah, because you're saying tariff will be in only one country. It's talking about only India. But we as a company will continue to grow.
Yeah, I'm just saying जैसा सिचुएशन है सर, यहाँ 50% टैरिफ इंडिया पे लग रहा है अभी, और बाकी जैसे आपने बोला चाइना पे जो भी 35% है, whatever situation is this way, still 15% CAGR sales growth for the next 2-3 years, right?
Yes.
अगर 50 का 25 हो जाता है, then 10% plus.
That will be good tailwind for us.
Okay, संजय जी आप कुछ बोल रहे थे.
Yeah, so I just want to give you some perspective about India capacity so that the number where it can go without tariff or with diversification in India to other geography like Japan, Australia, and UK FTA, European Union FTA. There can be multiple tailwinds which can come for India as well. Capacity wise, I think we are ready for $220 million plus in India, whereas we are doing almost $120 million only in India. India, that's what I'm saying. So the growth from India can happen, come very significantly, and it can add up to the overall group turnover as well. What we have stated earlier is 12 to 14% of the volume growth on a compounded annual growth rate basis, and keeping our assumption was constant realization per piece. I think that something we are still maintaining in that. Our idea initially was to accelerate it compared to what we have given a guidance about FY28. I think what Pallab is mentioning is that there may be still opportunity to accelerate that, but without tariff, definitely there is we should be able to accelerate, and with tariff, I think there is a opportunity which has to be unlocked to really accelerate it. But our original plan remains intact. I think that will still be there. Right, Pallab, you want to add something on this, please?
Yeah, because see, like for each of these countries that we are operating from, so we see a potential to grow in each one of them. India, definitely there is at this point of time, it is delinking that is happening from US. If this tariff doesn't go away, if the tariff goes away, then okay, fine, everything goes back to normal. If it doesn't, then delinking will continue. But yes, that means Japan will grow more, Australia will grow more, other markets will grow, domestic also will open up. So those are the options that we have to then fill up. So yes, the margin goals for India will become a little bit more challenging because we wanted to get into this double digit as soon as possible from all the regions. So that's where we have to see. We have been investing in India for the last few years. So as a result, today between our factory and some partner factories, we have a sizable capacity, as Sanjay just mentioned. So if this tariff goes away, then that can be filled up immediately and also get a better margins, definitely.
You mentioned margins, sir. Is it possible that under the current scenario of the US tariffs, we can still be in the double digits or a consolidated level, EBITDA margins, or it'll take 2-3 years?
I think we'll get much more clarity for this financial year by November, and by the time we finish our Q2 earning calls, I think then we'll have a better clarity. Next 2-3 years, we should be making double-digit EBITDA very clearly. Now, whether it is 10% or 11% or 12% is something we need to really see which one lever plays out, or all the 5 levers we are working plays out. Action is there on all the fronts, and many of them are really at a midway stage. I think it's a question of convergence of all the levers. If all converge together, I think we should be on the high end of double digit. If they converge in step by step, then we'll see addition of double digits from that onward. But this year, I think there will be some impact because of the tariff which situation what we have in the second quarter, and then third quarter, going to third quarter as well.
Hopefully, sir, we find a solution, as sir was saying, by November end or maybe early, okay, we find a solution for this. Varun, if you have further questions, so I have this rapid fire round for both of them, okay, gentlemen, before we close this session. I think if you have anything, Varun bhai.
Nothing from mine for now.
So I think, sir, we have understood about the promoters, business, company, you, both of you, gentlemen, as well. So if you allow, we have a small rapid fire which we introduce honestly with you guys this time. So,
Okay.
Pallab sir, if you were the finance minister for a day, okay, what is one step you would have taken for the textile industry?
Finance Minister.
एक चीज करनी है सर आपको टेक्सटाइल के लिए क्या करोगे आप?
No, definitely the financials, what you call the policies, finance policies, which is catering to the manufacturing, has to be much more long term and much more favorable for the manufacturing industry. So this is something must happen in India.
इतना ओपन एंडेड नहीं सर, एक चीज जो टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री के लिए सबसे बड़ा, given a chance, what you would do?
Finance, Sanjay, why don't you?
Yeah.
What?
I think if the question is directed to me, then I would say I'll give a capital investment subsidy for the next 15 years, and interest subvention schemes will be there, and the loan which is what I was mentioning, the green loan, that will be clarity will be there for the next 15-20 years for anyone to set up the industry. That's what my immediate action will be. Let's say if I am sitting there.
So, Pallab sir, one global retailer you would love to onboard for Pearl Global?
Yes, so there are many retailers which are always growing. So my goal is always to the ones which are growing retailers. So I will not name anybody, but if you talk about athleisure and athletic sector, there are a few which are like growing very fast. So those are my targets at this point of time.
Sanjay sir, India, Bangladesh, or Vietnam, which will be the growth engine for Pearl going ahead?
Top line, I think the three will be contributing, three of them, in a different proportion, of course. In terms of our target to achieve a double-digit EBITDA, India will play a key role in coming time.
Wow. So anyone can pick this question because it's a finance question, okay? But still, I will push Pallab sir. If you have 1,000 crores of free cash with you, greenfield capex, M&A, tech investment, or something, what do you want to do?
Again, it's a finance question to be answered by me.
So, you want me to go ahead, Pallab?
Sanjay, aap lo.
I think, see, so far we have been able to devise a financial discipline and the framework where the return on capital employed is looked at the first filtering criteria. Of course, the strategic decision always plays out, but within the strategic also there has to be a return which has to come at some point in time. That some point in time is not very far. It can be compromised for 6 months or 8 months time period if it is strategic reason, but return will be the one which will be there, will be done. And after achieving a certain scale, which Pallab mentioned about the vision of, let's say, to scale up and accelerate our pace of growth to 1 billion or plus, there will be inorganic opportunity which will be coming for active consideration of the board.
Pallab sir, which is one global textile company you envy?
Global textile company, manufacturing company.
हाँ जी, which you envy or get inspired from, कि boss हम ऐसा क्यों नहीं कर सकते?
Yeah, 𝐘𝐿, which is almost like $4 billion company today.
Sanjay sir, if not textile, which industry would Pearl Global, want to be?
I think DNA of the Pearl is textile only, garments. So I don't think they would have thought any other company.
So one global trend in fashion apparel industry that Indian manufacturers are still underestimating.
Yeah, that I am very clear is, you see, Indian have been shortcoming in the what you call man-made fiber. So that particular sector we have completely missed. I mentioned earlier also, almost 70% of the total consumption is in the man-made fiber, and we're totally missing that. So what I call it as performance wear. The shirt that I'm wearing is not a cotton shirt, and I can wear it, I can travel with it, and I'm not sweating in it. Although it's like a synthetic garment. So that's kind of performance wear is something like India is completely lacking on, and that's where like we have to focus. Of course, some policy changes might need it for that, but yes, that's one thing we are missing completely.
Sir, is there Indian company which you envy, textile manufacturing company? You mentioned with the global name.
No, because I've told you, like, my whole vision is that Indians missed out on being global
Yeah.
textile companies.
Last question, sir. In 3 words, describe the future of Pearl Global. दोनों को sir. पहले Pallab sir, फिर Sanjay sir.
See, the business model that we have created is scalable. I would say it's definitely a global, and it would be a sustainable one for a long term. So that's why these 3 words are important for us. scalable, global, and sustainable.
Sanjay sir.
I would say that, given the fast track where we had a disturbance in Bangladesh, we grew 25%. I would say that business model has to be anti-fragile in that sense, where you can really come out stronger than what it was earlier by having the aftershock. And last two big incidents, if you see the COVID impact, the company has grown multifold. If you look at Bangladesh impact, everybody was doubting the survival. The company has grown 25%. So that really kind of give me a conviction that, Pearl Global is anti-fragile is model already, and it is getting strengthened day by day, year by year.
So every disruption is an opportunity.
Lovely, sir. That's one of the best lines to end this phenomenal learning session. I really, really thank both of you, and of course, Varun, okay, to be here. And thank you for being our teacher, our guru today. I think it was phenomenal to learn Pearl Global from the best people, who have been running this company, hands down since last so many years. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Banerjee. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Varun. Bye.
Okay. Bye.